Overheard 2 is an Hong Kong film also directed by Alan Mak and Felix Chong. The movie again features a stellar cast including Louis Koo, Lau Ching-wan, and Daniel Wu. While in contrast to its predecessor, Overheard 2 presents an entirely unrelated and fresh storyline. With intense suspense, unexpected twists, and a focus on the theme of revenge, Overheard 2 captivates audiences with its intricate storytelling. Now, let's take a look at the movie's storyline. Part 1, The Stock Market Conspiracy. Manson was a renowned figure in the Hong Kong stock market. Despite being in his middle age, he exuded vitality and charisma that belied his years. Just after Manson's triumphant appearance on a televised talk show, where he held forth with confidence under the bright studio lights and a packed audience, he returned to his upscale office, located on the upper floors of a sleek skyscraper. As he settled into his leather chair, Manson's phone buzzed, signaling an unexpected call from several venerable tycoons. These individuals, all members of the enigmatic and influential Landlord Club, commanded respect in the business world that few could rival. They urged Manson to employ his expertise to manipulate the stock market using insider information, a request that could significantly impact the financial landscape of Hong Kong. Intriguingly, the Landlord Club also disclosed that Uncle Tony, an enigmatic and formidable presence within their ranks, wished to meet Manson in person several days later. Uncle Tony's reputation preceded him, and Manson's anxiety grew as he contemplated the impending meeting. He wasted no time and hurriedly drove to meet the club's senior members. Unbeknownst to Manson, he had unknowingly become the subject of intense surveillance by a shadowy figure who had been meticulously observing his every word and action, awaiting the perfect moment to reveal their existence. Part 2, The Relentless Pursuit on Urban Streets. Manson revved up his sleek supercar and hit the road, only to notice a menacing black van tailing him relentlessly. The city's chaotic streets became his battleground as Manson decided to push the limits, speeding and even daringly going against the flow of traffic to shake off his relentless pursuer. Just as Manson thought he had outwitted the black van, it reappeared in his rearview mirror, refusing to give up the chase. Manson's heart raced as he approached an intersection, where he executed a jaw-dropping 180-degree drift, leaving the black van in the dust. Breathing heavily, Manson picked up Uncle Tony's call, his mind distracted from the perilous situation. Little did he know that a moment's lapse in concentration would lead to disaster. Suddenly, Manson's car was violently struck by a small delivery truck, sending it tumbling over in a violent crash. The police arrived swiftly at the chaotic accident scene, and their search of Manson's mangled supercar uncovered a shocking discovery, a highly restricted military-grade eavesdropping device. With the presence of such prohibited equipment, the case took a sinister turn, and the elite counterterrorism unit was called in to delve into the unfolding urban mystery. Part 3, The Mysterious Surveillance. Captain Jack, the head of the counterterrorism team, was tasked with investigating this car accident and espionage case. Jack, tall, handsome, and exuding an air of righteousness, appeared to be the epitome of law enforcement excellence. Manson, the victim of the accident, fortunately, didn't suffer severe injuries. He was staying at the hospital, with his wife, Emily, by his side. In a spacious, well-decorated hospital room, Manson and Jack had a meeting. Manson learned from Jack that a military-grade listening device had been discovered in his car by the police. Moreover, the listening device had a signal reception range of up to 1,000 meters, implying that someone needed to constantly track Manson's vehicle to eavesdrop on him. However, when confronted by Jack, Manson vehemently insisted that he hadn't been under surveillance or followed. It was evident that Manson was hiding many secrets that he didn't want to reveal. Part 4, City of Deception. Manson had a murky past. In 2008, he found himself indebted to the bank for over $70 million due to his stock market ventures. However, fate took a twisted turn when the stock market crashed, and Manson somehow managed to amass a fortune of several $billion. Jack's words brought Manson's thoughts back to the hospital. Jack claimed that he had no interest in wealth or financial crimes. His only goal was to uncover the person behind the installation of military-grade eavesdropping devices. Despite Manson's initial reluctance, he saw Jack as his only hope for protection in this treacherous game. Manson's mind was a whirlwind of uncertainty as he weighed the pros and cons. He knew that accepting Jack's offer meant risking his newfound fortune and revealing secrets he had buried deep within himself. Yet, he also understood that this was his chance to bring the elusive eavesdropper to justice. Finally, after much contemplation, Manson made his decision. He would allow Jack to install listening devices in his office, exposing himself to a world of danger and intrigue. Little did he know that this choice would plunge him even deeper into the dark underbelly of the city's secrets. Part 5, Jack's Story. In the confines of an office, Manson's wife meticulously explained the details to Manson, her voice echoing the passage of time. Her words painted a vivid picture of their predicament. Jack's wife was a lawyer, a formidable presence in the legal world. In 2008, she made a grave mistake when her stock market investments took a nosedive, resulting in significant financial losses. Desperation compelled Jack's wife to embezzle funds from her unsuspecting clients to repay her mounting debts. The moral abyss deepened as she became entangled in a web of economic crimes. Ultimately, it was Jack who, with a heavy heart, apprehended his own wife for her involvement in this financial malfeasance. Handcuffs sealed her fate, and their relationship plummeted to sub-zero temperatures. Jack, once a revered member of the police force, found himself on the outskirts of trust within the ranks. The stain of his wife's transgressions cast a long shadow over his career. Unbeknownst to everyone, Jack had spent years in the counterterrorism unit, tirelessly apprehending countless terrorists. His dedication to national security had been shrouded in secrecy due to classified agreements. Yet, in the eyes of the world, Jack would forever be remembered not for his heroic deeds in the fight against terrorism but for his role in arresting his own wife. The irony of his life's work being eclipsed by this singular act was a bitter pill to swallow. Part 6, Eavesdropping in the Shadows. In the heart of the city, Jack meticulously observed Manson's office, determined to find the perfect vantage point for surveillance. His keen eye led him to a nearby building, an ideal spot for monitoring. As Jack continued his surveillance, another key player entered the scene, Joe. It was Joe who had been trailing Manson all along and had discreetly installed a listening device inside Manson's car. Jack's team eventually pinpointed Joe's location, and they realized that Joe was a formidable opponent. With his exceptional hacking skills, Joe managed to infiltrate Jack's communication channel swiftly. In a twist of events, Joe managed to elude Jack's pursuit, leaving Jack baffled and frustrated. Jack had underestimated Joe's capabilities. Joe returned to the nursing home, his usual place of residence. He was there to take care of his elderly mother, who suffered from dementia. The deep love and dedication he showed for his mother revealed a different side of Joe. During a conversation between Joe and his mother, it became clear that Joe's father was named Chauncey. Joe's backstory started to unravel, hinting at a deeper mystery surrounding his motivations. After Joe had seen to his mother's needs, he wasted no time in hacking into the police department systems. He skillfully extracted all of Jack's personal information, uncovering a web of secrets that would change the course of their urban mystery. Part 7, Manson's Mysterious Meeting at the Exclusive Club. Manson arrived at a private club, where opulent decorations and bright crystal chandeliers adorned the surroundings. However, beneath the shimmering chandeliers, a dark and secretive conversation was taking place. Several elderly individuals, who were influential figures in the world of business, were waiting for Manson. They had summoned him in the early morning to discuss insider trading and stock market manipulation. Manson explained the reason for his tardiness and revealed that he had been under surveillance. According to the police investigation, a listening device had been planted in his car for over a month. Uncle Mac, the oldest among them, couldn't contain his frustration and loudly reprimanded Manson for his carelessness. However, the first to regain composure at the scene was Uncle Don, a bald-headed man. He analyzed the situation, reasoning that if the police had discovered the listening device, it meant that it wasn't the work of the authorities. Instead, it was likely orchestrated by the underworld. For the underworld, money was their ultimate pursuit, and they considered it invaluable. At that moment, Uncle Jim, who had been standing silently, received a call from Uncle Tony, who is currently not in Hong Kong. After hearing the details from Manson, Uncle Tony promptly dispatched investigators to Hong Kong to uncover the truth. Part 8, The Landlord's Debt. Manson returned home, the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had been entangled in a web of secrets and obligations, unable to escape its suffocating grasp. His wife, aware of the darkness that consumed him, suggested they run away, leave it all behind. They had amassed enough wealth, and there was no reason to stay in this city any longer. She had voiced this desire multiple times before, each time more urgently than the last. But Manson knew it wasn't that simple. Behind his back loomed the ominous presence of the Landlord Club, the shadowy organization with connections that reached far and wide. They would never allow him to leave Hong Kong without consequences. In his heart, Manson yearned to break free, to escape the clutches of the Landlord Club, but he also knew the risks. He had seen what they were capable of, and he couldn't put his family in danger. So, for now, he had no choice but to placate his wife and postpone their escape plan. As Manson contemplated his predicament, memories of 2007 flooded his mind. Back then, he was just an ordinary stockbroker, managing securities for a company named Xin Electronics. But their world was turned upside down when ruthless foreign investors launched a hostile takeover of Xin Electronics. It was the Landlord Club that had come to Manson's rescue when all seemed lost. The one behind Manson's salvation was none other than Uncle Chauncey, a mysterious figure with an enigmatic aura. In a poker game, Manson deliberately lost to Uncle Chauncey, gifting him a check worth 420,000 Hong Kong dollars. Little did Manson know that this check would become a symbol of their unspoken agreement. Uncle Chauncey held on to that check, a reminder of the debt that Manson owed him. He hoped that one day, when Manson faced the check again, he would remember the favor Uncle Chauncey had done for him and be willing to repay the debt. Manson knew that the Landlord Club's grip on his life was far from over. Part 9, Shadows of the Landlord Club. In 1973, amidst the chaos of the Hong Kong stock market crash, numerous foreign companies began acquiring local businesses. At this juncture, a group of ambitious young entrepreneurs united to stand against the foreign influx and emerged victorious. This marked the birth of the Landlord Club, though their intentions were shrouded in mystery. Within the Landlord Club, these individuals tasted the sweet fruits of their collective success and decided to continue their alliance. Ostensibly, their mission was to safeguard the Hong Kong stock market, but in reality, they used their influence to amass enormous wealth. It was a tale of heroes turning into the very monsters they fought against. Uncle Chauncey, the founder of the Landlord Club, watched with a heavy heart as his fellow members succumbed to their insatiable greed. In response, he established charitable organizations and retirement homes to alleviate some of the societal damage wrought by the club's actions. He also extended a helping hand to Manson, a man caught in the web of the club's sinister activities. Uncle Chauncey, then consumed by guilt, secretly gathered evidence of the club's nefarious activities. He walked the thin line between loyalty to his former allies and a burning desire to expose their crimes. Part 10, The Enigmatic Delivery. One morning, Manson received a package in the mail. Inside the package was a smartphone containing recorded evidence of insider trading involving Manson. As Manson listened to the recordings, Joe's voice came through the phone, demanding that Manson comply with Joe's instructions. At that moment, Joe, who had just delivered the package, hung up the call and realized he was surrounded by Uncle Tony's hitmen. Joe quickly hopped on his motorcycle and raced away. As he sped off, he crossed paths with Jack, who immediately turned to follow him. Joe's escape led him to a bridge where, in a desperate attempt to evade Jack, he ended up falling and clutching onto a safety net. Just in the nick of time, Jack managed to rescue Joe from the brink of falling off the bridge. However, Joe wasted no time in turning the tables and kidnapping Jack. He revealed that the Landlord Club was connected to a foreign fund, dropping a bombshell revelation. With Jack as his unwilling accomplice, Joe drove off in Jack's car, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a city engulfed in mystery. Part 11. Hasty Exit from the City. Jack's car was discovered right in front of his house, sparking immediate intrigue. The interior of the vehicle bore grim evidence. It was stained with Joe's blood, leaving Jack deeply unsettled. As he inspected the car, Jack came across a perplexing item, a hanging tag whose purpose eluded him, adding another layer of mystery to the unfolding puzzle. Meanwhile, across town at the company, Manson found himself immersed in a sudden realization about Joe's true identity. To his astonishment, Joe was none other than the long-lost son of the late Uncle Chauncey, whose demise had been shrouded in mystery for years. Manson couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was a significant piece in a much larger and more complex puzzle. Haunted by a growing sense of unease, Manson decided it was time to make a drastic move. He resolved to liquidate his stock holdings and make a hasty exit from the city, fearing that he might be caught up in something far more sinister than he had ever imagined. Just as Manson was on the brink of executing his escape plan, Jack appeared on the scene, casting a shadow of doubt over Manson's intentions. Jack's probing questions about the Landlord Club and its mysterious ties to an obscure foreign fund suggested that his investigation had taken a sharp turn, straying from its initial path. Part 12. The Mysterious Yacht Meeting. On a dark and windy night in Hong Kong, Manson contemplated his escape plan, but his path was suddenly blocked by members of the Landlord Club. They whisked Manson away to a luxurious yacht to have a conversation with the club's top brass. Unbeknownst to Manson, the Landlord Club had already uncovered his plan to flee Hong Kong. Their faces bore stern expressions as they confronted him on the yacht's opulent deck. In a surprising turn of events, a mysterious figure known as Uncle Tony boarded the cruise ship. He couldn't help but notice that everyone present was using the same brand of mobile phones, adding to the intrigue. It turned out that Joe, the mastermind behind this gathering, had been threatening everyone through their phones. Uncle Tony managed to trace the phone number hidden behind the battery of his device and made contact with Joe. However, Uncle Tony was taken aback when he learned that Joe's only demand was for the Landlord Club to invest in 50 million shares of stock number 749. This stock was valued at a mere 50 cents per share, totaling just over 20 million Hong Kong dollars. Joe claimed that the stock belonged to his father, further baffling Uncle Tony. Although he sensed that things were not as straightforward as they seemed, Uncle Tony was still in the dark about Joe's true intentions. Part 13. Club Meeting Ends. Manson had just concluded his meeting at the yacht club. It had been a long evening of networking and negotiations, but he was eager to get home to see Emily, his wife. Little did he know that Joe had been waiting for him there, hidden in the shadows. As Manson entered his home, he found Joe sitting in the dimly lit living room, an ominous look on his face. Joe wasted no time and pulled out a weathered check Manson had written to his father years ago. Manson's heart sank as he realized Joe's true intentions, and the memories of that dark chapter in his life came rushing back. From that moment on, Manson knew he had no choice but to help Joe. He had been living with the guilt of his past actions, and Joe's appearance was a painful reminder that he could never truly escape it. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Jack had been diligently investigating the mysterious case. His search led him to a nursing home, where he discovered a crucial piece of the puzzle. The nursing home had a policy of providing residents with adhesive badges that contained a tracking device to prevent elderly patients from wandering off. Jack examined the tag he had found in Joe's possession, only to realize that it belonged to Joe's mother. However, the tracking SIM chip inside the tag was missing, leaving Jack with even more questions than answers. What had happened to Joe's mother, and why was her tracking chip removed? As Jack tried to dig deeper into the nursing home's records, he encountered resistance from the facility's director. The director cited the lateness of the hour as an excuse to deny Jack access to any further information, leaving Jack frustrated and determined to uncover the secrets hidden within the nursing home. Part 14, Gamble. The following morning, Jack returned to the retirement home to continue his investigation. He was determined to unravel the case that had been haunting him. Little did he know that a phone call from Joe would turn his world upside down. Joe had kidnapped Jack's ex-wife, using her as leverage to force Jack into a precarious situation. In a desperate attempt to save his ex-wife, Jack was coerced into obtaining a massive briefcase filled with shares of stock number 749. Joe demanded that Jack sell these stocks on his behalf. Meanwhile, Uncle Tony, always one step ahead, had a plan of his own. He decided to play along with Joe, feigning compliance, while discreetly assigning his henchmen to trace Joe's phone signal. Stock number 749, under the control of Manson, saw a surge in frenzied trading. However, due to the scarcity of sellers, the landlord club had no choice but to continually raise their purchase price, causing the stock's value to skyrocket to a staggering $6 per share. It had multiplied more than tenfold. It was for sure that there were insiders profiting from this scheme, likely individuals Joe had orchestrated. Just when it seemed the stock was about to hit the ceiling price, Uncle Tony's hired assassins captured Joe, leading everyone to believe that Uncle Tony had won the game. But the truth was far more complex. Joe's capture turned out to be a part of his elaborate trap, setting the stage for a suspenseful urban mystery. Part 15, The Confrontation. In the heart of the bustling city, amidst its well-kept secrets, there stood an ancient mansion. Its faded grandeur and scattered traces of history told tales of a bygone era. Joe, battered and bruised, found himself forcibly ushered into this enigmatic abode, standing before the imposing figure of Uncle Tony, alongside a council of venerable landlord club members. Despite the bloodstains marring his face and the evident pain etched across his features, Joe's eyes remained unyielding, exuding a resolute and unflinching demeanor. His unwavering gaze locked onto Uncle Tony's, filled with a potent mixture of defiance and bitter resentment. Uncle Tony had thought that apprehending Joe would be enough to bend him to his will, but he had gravely underestimated the depth of Joe's preparation. As the tense atmosphere gripped the room, Joe coolly revealed that he had taken precautionary measures by uploading incriminating evidence against Uncle Tony onto a hidden corner of the internet, ensuring that his own safety was tantamount to the exposure of Tony's darkest secrets. In a hushed yet firm voice, Joe conveyed to the gathering of onlookers the gravity of the situation. He made it unequivocally clear that should any harm befall him, a prearranged contingency would trigger the automatic playback of the damning recordings, exposing Uncle Tony and the landlord club's malevolent machinations to the world. As the seconds ticked away in the tense standoff, the realization dawned upon the assembly that they were now engaged in a high-stakes game of survival, where the tables had been turned, and Joe held all the cards. The room seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the next move in this urban mystery that had thrust these adversaries into a deadly confrontation. Uncle Tony found himself cornered by a young man for the first time, his options limited by the threat of incriminating evidence. Reluctantly, he acquiesced to the demands. Consequently, Uncle Tony instructed Manson to continue buying stocks. Here, one could discern that Uncle Tony genuinely intended to use the landlord club's acquisition funds for Joe. But was there a more mysterious motive behind this decision? At this point, it was undeniable that Joe had emerged victorious. Part 16, Mystery Unveiled. Uncle Tony's intentions took an abrupt turn when he learned that the top insider trader was none other than Jack, a police officer. The foundation of Uncle Tony and Joe's trade relied on the premise that law enforcement would stay out of their affairs. Now, with the police involved, Uncle Tony had to rethink his strategy. Uncle Tony realized that even if Joe decided not to reveal the evidence, the police would eventually trace it back to him, implicating them both in market manipulation. Uncle Tony's face turned cold as he understood the gravity of the situation. In the ensuing conversation, long-buried secrets began to resurface. Back in the day, the Landlord Club had faced a crisis, and it was Joe's father, Uncle Chauncey, who had willingly taken the fall, heading to prison to protect the others. Before Uncle Chauncey went behind bars, he had made sure to destroy all the incriminating evidence against the Landlord Club. Uncle Chauncey had decided not to use that evidence as leverage against his brothers. He genuinely wanted to give them a fresh start. Little did he know that Uncle Tony had dispatched someone to silence Uncle Chauncey within the prison walls. Joe's suspicions had been spot on all along. Uncle Tony was the one who had killed Uncle Chauncey. The revelation hit hard. The other Landlord Club bosses present were once brothers to Uncle Chauncey, and as they learned the truth, their eyes betrayed a mix of shock and terror. Part 17, Betrayed Bonds. Uncle Tony clung to the last glimmer of hope, wondering when Joe would destroy the online evidence now that he had purchased the stocks as per Joe's instructions. As expected, Joe made it clear that he had no intention of erasing the evidence. Uncle Tony finally snapped. He pulled out his gun and shot Joe dead, choosing to make one wrong move after another, first killing his dear friend and now opting to end his friend's son's life. At that moment, Jack, the man who had helped Joe sell the stocks, returned home. He was relieved to find his ex-wife safe and sound. Jack finally realized that it had all been part of Joe's revenge plan, and the plan had never actually intended to harm Jack's family's lives. Part 18, The Intricate Plot Unveiled. Joe had orchestrated every element from the very start. He had a plan so elaborate that even his own death was a meticulously designed part of it. Joe was keenly aware that merely making the incriminating recording public wouldn't be enough to implicate Uncle Tony, who had his assets and identity securely stashed away overseas. Therefore, Joe embarked on a mission to track Manson, with the intention of using the recording as leverage to compel Uncle Tony to reveal himself. As Joe's investigation led him to the heart of law enforcement, he uncovered an unexpected ally in Jack, an upright officer with a spotless reputation. The idea of involving Jack in his dangerous game became increasingly tempting. With the pieces falling into place, Joe took a grave risk by deliberately placing himself in harm's way, a move calculated to provoke Uncle Tony into taking Joe's life. It was this final, audacious maneuver that would ultimately annihilate Uncle Tony beyond recovery. The missing GPS tracking chip, a critical piece of the puzzle, now resided inside Joe's lifeless body. Jack, aware of the impending climax, knew that it was his turn to step into the spotlight and bring the story to its electrifying conclusion. Part 19, Unlikely Bonds. Jack swiftly tracked down the location of the buried body, catching the killer red-handed. His heart raced as he uncovered the gruesome scene, the grim sight etched into his memory. Uncle Tony and his associates were apprehended, their criminal empire crumbling as they faced the consequences of their illicit activities. Behind their stoic exteriors, guilt and fear ate at them, each one struggling with the weight of their actions. Manson, once a stock market manipulator, had served his prison sentence and now found himself in an unexpected place, a retirement home. As he walked through the gates of the facility, the echoes of his past sins lingered, a constant reminder of his past life. Assuming the role of the retirement home's fund manager, Manson tried to make amends for his past deeds by investing the residents' savings wisely. It was a chance at redemption, a glimmer of hope in his otherwise tarnished existence. It was within these aging walls that Manson crossed paths with Jack, who had also sought refuge in the retirement home. Bonded by their shared experiences and the desire to make a fresh start, an unlikely friendship blossomed between the two. Together, they cared for Joe's aging mother, offering her the compassion and support she deserved in her twilight years. The movie, Overheard 2, is also a thrilling roller coaster of a movie. A must-see for fans of suspenseful cinema. If you're interested in this movie, please purchase the original version for viewing. If you're satisfied with this movie explanation, please click like and subscribe, and leave a comment.